The Agriculture Shop, your one-stop shop for agricultural equipment and supplies on the Carnage, St. George's.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. Welcome to part 2 of our Agri Forum, Taking Agriculture Forward. We started last Wednesday and our conversation started looking at the importance of agriculture in the Grenadian context. We also started our discussion on agricultural support. We looked briefly at challenges facing the sector. We also looked at the role of the MNIB, and we also had a farmer's perspective. We also look at opportunities in the sector. We continue the discussion this week, and of course when we come back from the break, we'll introduce our guests, have them make a few remarks, and then we'll get into the conversation on taking agriculture forward. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Is what 1 gallon of water looks like. Now, consider these facts. It takes about 40 gallons of water to fill a bathtub. A 10-minute shower consumes around 20 gallons. Older toilets need 3 gallons per flush. An irrigation system takes anywhere between 4 to 10 gallons per minute, depending on its design. Now scale these numbers up several times for a hotel or a farm, and you'll notice thousands upon thousands of gallons being consumed each year. The truth is, we can still complete these tasks using far less water through the implementation of more efficient water solutions. The Challenge Fund, a component of the Climate Resilience in Grenada's water sector, also known as the G-Cruise project, can help. Administered through the Grenada Development Bank, the Challenge Fund provides the tourism and agricultural sectors with refund grant financing to implement the adoption of water-efficient solutions in their hotels and on their farms. Hydroponics, rainwater harvesting, grey water recycling systems, and water-efficient bathroom solutions are only a few of the many possibilities. Protecting our water supply is our responsibility. Water is not an infinite resource. Every drop counts. For more information on the Challenge Fund, contact the Grenada Development Bank at 440-2382.
Farmers, here is an important message from the Agricultural Shop on the Carnage. You have a lot invested in your operation: land, livestock, and labor. Complete your checklist with a wide range of seeds stored at the required temperature, bio-friendly liquid and traditional fertilizers, animal healthcare products, animal feeds, fungicides and insecticides, and of course packaged soils and agricultural tools. Farmers, you work hard every day, so convert your investments into good, healthy foods and financial profits. Visit the Agricultural Shop at the Rennick Thompson Building on the Carnage. There's just nowhere better.
There is an auto repair center that is revolutionizing the way they do business. Presenting Premium Auto Services Limited. We offer wheel alignment, diagnostic scan, AC servicing, transmission fluid exchange, power steering fluid flush, just to name a few. We are in fact your one-stop auto repair center for motor cars, SUVs, pickups, buses, and even trucks. We're on the Calvin main road and boast of a highly skilled professional team. We are trusted and highly recommended, and most of all, certified by Master Align. Visit us today or call 439-4000. Premium Auto Services Limited, your complete auto care center.
We support you at every stage of your life.
For business,
For your education,
for your financial freedom,
for that new ride.
Upgrade your life with the Communal. Contact us today.
A whole new level of convenience and comfort awaits you when you shop at Rise and Shine Supermarket and Hardware Supplies, Griffin Lane, Grenville. Convenient, because we are open Sunday to Sunday. We're even at your service on public holidays. Comfort, because we are easily accessible to the physically challenged. Free Wi-Fi is available while you shop, and bags come at no charge. Everyday low prices and excellent customer care. Adequate parking available. We supply everything you can possibly think of. Family and home supplies, fresh meat, vegetables, and personal care products. All brands of cooking gas at affordable prices. You can send in your order, have it pulled, or pick up express.
Welcome back, everyone, and let me just welcome our listeners on K105 FM and our viewers on the GBN's Facebook page and YouTube channel. We are indeed very happy to have you with us. So we are going to welcome our panelists this evening. This evening I want to start with Mr. Daniel Lewis. He's an agronomist. Mr. Lewis, good evening and welcome. A few open remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Godfrey. I know you are very passionate about agriculture and its development, and the mere fact you could have this very important dialogue is a testimony to that. I always held a very, very strong view that, discussing issues related to national development is the greatest honor a citizen could ever have, and this forum, this discussion here this evening is clearly one of those, and I am absolutely delighted to be a part of it. It's my sincere hope, and I have very great optimism that would happen, that tonight we'll have a very interactive discussion, and I'm sincerely hoping also that we could have some engagement with the listening public out there. So I'm looking forward to a great discussion tonight.
Thank you very much. Let's welcome Senator Roderick Sinclair. Senator, welcome.
Thank you so much, Godfrey, and thank you for having me back on this part 2 of the program. I want to say good night to all our listening public, locally and overseas, for farmers, fisher folks, and everyone out there take great interest in this important sector of this country. Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Senator. Mr. Donald Williams, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Godfrey, and thank you for having me. I want to say good night to the rest of the panelists and good night to the listening and viewing audience. I want to use the opportunity, Godfrey, to applaud the GBN for this initiative. Oftentimes you hear persons complain about the lack of prominence given to the agriculture sector, especially when you come to the national discourse on growth and development. And I think this is a very good move by the GBN to have this forum so that we can focus on what is a very critical sector for the local economy, especially for the development of the rural economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. And folks, it's not by chance that I have left the ladies for last. I was given strict warning that I must leave the best for last, and so I had to oblige. So let's welcome Ms. Afia Joseph, the CEO of the MNIB. Ms. Joseph, good evening and welcome back.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Godfrey, and good evening to your team who put this initiative together. And is here tonight with us as well in the background, ensuring that everything is running smooth, and listening public and the farming community as well. I want to also endorse the statement that was made previously by Mr. Donald, that we really embrace this initiative that you did, and I am hoping that is a continuous conversation that we have about the development of the agricultural sector, and not just talking, but also linkages that are needed to take the sector forward. So I'm very blessed to be here tonight.
Thank you very much. And finally, Dr. Tessa Barry, good evening and welcome back.
Good evening again. Good evening to the listening audience. Good evening to your distinguished panelists. Again, Godfrey, I want to thank you for the opportunity. This, I believe, is an opportunity for us to bring presence to the issues that the sector faces. And sometimes, you know, we always speak about not much is being done, but the very fact that we are able to bring awareness, it's important, so persons are able to engage with what is happening in the sector. And I would like to thank, you know, GBN and you and the team for bringing this program together. And it's a start for us to continue, you know, in bringing a presence to agriculture and making it a lot more prominent within the society.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barry. As I said, listeners and viewers, last week we started the discussion and we touched on a number of issues, and so we continue this evening. And I want to go straight back to Dr. Barry because she's also co-hosting with me. I lean on her and Mr. Lewis very much. They're a source of information, and whenever I need information, I usually call them. So I am going back to Dr. Barry now to open the discussion and get things going. Dr. Barry, over to you.
Okay, thanks again, Godfrey. Now, I want us to open the discussion this evening with aspects about our food and the food and nutrition aspect of the sector. And when we look at the importation, 70% of the food that we consume is imported. And Grenada has a very high percentage of non-communicable diseases. So we have high obesity, we have high blood pressure, and in recent times you see a lot of times persons, the diabetes. These prevalent diseases are things that are lifestyle and nutritional related. So I want to open the discussion with Mr. Lewis by asking him to share some perspectives on what has been done with regards to the food and nutrition security aspect, from a public perspective, from government perspective, from his knowledge on that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barry. Speaking on food and nutrition security, one of the things I could definitely say is that following 2008, the food crisis of 2008, when food prices just escalated enormously, a lot of countries started, you know, that discussion about food and nutrition security. They need to put that in place. But if I go back about 6 years prior to that, 6-7 years prior to that, for some strange reason, Grenada had that kind of vision about food and nutrition security, because I could tell you that in around 2000, 2001, there about the Ministry of Agriculture, and by extension the government, has been making some budgetary allocation to support food and nutrition security. I mean, at that time, you know, they were putting in place measures to support persons, especially the more marginalized in society, by providing support through, in some cases, vegetable seedlings, some farm animals like poultry and small ruminants, and supported them through things like fertilizer and so forth, you know. And that was a wonderful experience, because what that has shown that there was vision then, because no country was talking about food and nutrition security in any tangible way. And so that, you know, brought some perspective. And then in addition to that, what we found too, that there were some people who graduated from that situation and became full-time farmers because they enjoyed it, because the intention was to ensure that you improve the food and nutrition security at the family level, at the household level. But some people went beyond that and they liked it and they felt that they could have made an income and started doing farming. But what Grenada needed then, that was just a start to address food and nutrition security in a more comprehensive way. And for that, a request was made to the Food and Agricultural Organization to support Grenada in terms of developing a comprehensive food and nutrition security and action plan. And clearly, FAO provided support, financial and technical, and I remember I spearheaded that effort, and we had a lot of consultation with key stakeholders. Anytime you're developing a policy, you need to get the perspective of a lot of the key stakeholders. I remember many times we met in the stadium all over the place, and Grenada, in the final analysis, had a very, very good policy with action plan supporting to support the implementation of the policy. And that, I think, Cabinet had approved that policy, I think, since 2015. And so over the years, you look at certain aspects of the policy to implement and so forth. Sometimes what the ministry has been doing over the years, essentially, in some ways, some of the activities was, to implement that policy. And so when you look at a good food and nutrition, food and nutrition security has 4 basic dimensions. Food, access to food is very, very important. Food availability is key. So food availability, food access, right? And then there is food stability. Because even though you have a good agricultural industry that is resilient and so forth, and it's not, and you could lose stability of the food system by having, all these things like you have the pandemic now, you could have hurricane, you could have all these sort of things, and then you have the other thing about food utilization. How it is you could use the food in different ways so it could be more appealing, so people could use it. You don't cook the same thing over and over. You could do value addition and so forth. And in terms of food access, that's why certain governments have different intervention. You're talking about, in the case of Grenada Material Social Development, they have the SEEDS program, because, people need to access food. So you could provide some support. if you do not have the thing, how it is family, you could provide some resources so they could have access to food. So in synthesis, that is more or less a very succinct explanation of the, the historical perspective of food and nutrition security development in Grenada over the years.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I want to go to Mr. Williams, and it is something that I think this is where we practically closed off last week on the issue of funding that is available for farmers and farmers not accessing that kind of funding. My question to you, has your organization done anything or any form of investigation to determine why is that happening?
Thank you again, Godfrey. No, we've not done any real study that could give us the empirical data as to why this is happening. But we have, over the years, observed some things, and we have an opinion on that. And I think Senator St. Clair alluded to part of it in his presentation last week. And when he said that there has to be the enabling environment for the growth and development of the sector. Because if the sector is not growing and is not advancing, the need for financing is not there, right? People may need small amount of money just to keep operations going, and they may take small loans here and there. But in terms of any significant request for financing, it has to come in terms of financing growth and development, expansion, diversification, etc. And if you look at the sector now, there isn't much of that happening. And if there isn't much of that happening, you wouldn't find a significant demand for funding. So I think Senator St. Clair was very correct when he said, okay, it's okay to say that the funding is available and there is no uptake, but what are we doing to create the environment for the growth and development of the sector so they can now access and make use of the funding that's available? There is also a school of thought which says that there is a capacity issue, and financial institutions find it difficult to properly assess and make informed decisions with regards to financing agriculture enterprises. And the main reason for that is in a lot of cases, there is no empirical data that you can use to do a proper assessment, both at the enterprise and individual farmers level, as well as at the subsector level. So you find you're faced with a funding proposal, but for you to adequately access that proposal and make an informed decision, you have no information or very little information that can help you. So it puts you in a position where you now have to make a judgment call as to whether that is a risk that you're prepared to take without any proper information to speak to that, right? It also sometimes leads to a certain level of frustration on the part of the farmers because they would come to you, but because they don't have any information, records, reports, etc., that you can work with, you would try to help them by probably referring them back to persons they supply, persons they purchase things from, ask them to collect receipts and things like that, letters, statements. And they think it's tedious, and sometimes they don't really go through because they get kind of frustrated. But you're not in a position, you don't have the information, and in order to make a proper assessment, you're trying to come up with something, because financial institutions have to assess the proposals before them and make informed decisions. Mm-hmm. So I think those are two significant areas that we probably need to look at if we have to increase the take-up of the funding available.
Thank you. Before I go back to Dr. Barry, Senator Sinclair, you spoke, and Mr. Williams alluded to it last week, as it relates to the enabling environment for the development of this sector. Can you just broaden a little bit on that? Because that seemed to be weighing on a lot of things. A lot of things are involved there that is preventing a lot of things, so to speak, from happening. So let's talk a little bit about the enabling environment quickly.
Thank you, Godfrey. See, unless we stop treating agriculture in a sort of like Russian roulette, again, we have to be careful. Agriculture is not different to any enterprise. A guy wants to build a house, he really just starts clearing lands, digging holes, and start putting up pillars and hoping the house will finish. Most time the house may not finish if you do it like that, because you may run out of money, the windows might be off, and those things. And so what Donald is speaking about is so correct, in that what we have is that a lot of cases where you have farmers who would start a crop with no guidance. Maybe they're unemployed. Maybe they're looking to make extra money. And so they start the process, they clear some lands, they realize, oops, I didn't have fertilizer, I need some money for that. And so the crop may not do well. So the whole interest about record keeping is not about it, it's about how quick they can get to cash so that they can able to survive. I say all this to say that when we're speaking in this context, we must not lose sight of those gains that we have made in the past. Mr. Lewis very well knows, within the Ministry of Agriculture, as our national body, has in the past and need to update and create those different, what I will call financing models, and so on, the cost structure, the production tech packs, as to how to produce those various products. That is why you had bananas and so on doing well, which Mr. Lewis is very well about, because they had almost a book, how to produce bananas, what to put when, how to handle certain things. So you can easily know in advance what are the costs. So you don't have to wait on what a farmer do and what I keep a records. What I keep a record is in terms of his ability to fine-tune and to optimize the results. But if you want to build a house, this is how to build a house. If you want to grow tomatoes, there is a certain way to grow tomatoes. And the CARDI and the ICA and the Ministry of Agriculture, along with the same farmers, know about that. In fact, the years Mr. Daniel will speak about prior to 2008, in 2001 and all of those things, which I'm familiar with, you had situations where the Ministry of Agriculture would engage in what they call like model plots. So they would engage maybe 5 or 6 farmers in different climatic zones in the country to produce if it's tomatoes, or to produce if it's yams or dashin. And they're going to put down, they're going to work with the farmer, collect this record to do certain validation. So then any farmer afterwards can take this result and replicate it down the road. Where is that? Have we updated that recently? So then we lead to the whole thing to be like a Russian roulette. If a guy want to do, I want to build a house now, he go to an architect, the architect design how the house going to build, and a guy build it. A farmer want to grow tomatoes, he doesn't even know where they have to start. Where is this tech pack he can collect online or somewhere and say, this is how to plant tomatoes, this is how to plant cabbage, where is it? And so the bank would be able to get confidence because they can see what the projections are, and then you can able to monitor the targets and see if he's meeting it or not, so that they would be able to provide the necessary support. And that will make Brother Donald life easier. It will provide more confidence in the financing institution. And this is where we have to go. But where is that? It's nowhere. Who is responsible? Our fathers and mothers.
Maybe before you come in, Dr. Barry, maybe I can pose that question to Ms. Joseph of the MNIB. Ms. Joseph, is the MNIB responsible for that, for teaching the farmers how to do what they're supposed to do?
I'm into the role. I've realized that the MNIB's scope is quite broad, sometimes to the point where it's very confusing as to what exactly MNIB is responsible for. I do know that it's coming up over and over again, the need for training and to equip the farmers with the skills to run their farms as a business. There are farmers who currently do that, and they are able to realize profits and even gain financing, grants, etc., from running their farms as a business. There are farmers who clearly have limitations to that, whether it's manpower or know-how. I think that the MNIB going forward can work with various organizations. We should be able to provide support in terms of development of those skills. Somebody has to do it. It is a glaring fact that this is a major issue in the sector, and it's preventing farmers from accessing financing. So I believe that we have a responsibility in this area as well. However, that's for those who want to run their farms as a business. That is another area you have to look at. And it will be necessary for financing. What I know the MNIB has been able to do for farmers that have been working with us for years even is guarantee, assurance that we can provide letters and so forth. We have records of all the farmers who do business with MNIB. So they can, even if they don't have the database or they're not keeping financial records, their revenue information, etc., they can get printouts, they can get a letter. Or farmers who currently have farm contracts can also get a letter for their financial institutions showing the revenue that they will be generating for the next 12 months, I should say, which for many are very substantial, and I think should form the basis to justify the need for financing to develop their farms. So through the MNIB, this is what we can do. Even looking at areas where if the bank has a challenge with the issue of whether the farmer may pay the loan or so forth, this is where the MNIB can come in. The banks do letters where we do standing orders, etc. These things can be considered. So we can get creative in the sector through the MNIB, through other institutions that the farmers provide produce to see how we can make this work. We have to purchase from them. We have to pay them. They have to pay you. How can we merge the situation so that the farmer could get the financing that they want? And by extension, if it's okay, I can ask Mr. Williams if he can extend a bit on financing for agro-processors, because as we speak now, we actually have some agro-processors who are looking for finances to develop value-added products for items like breadfruit chips and so forth. And I believe that they may need some support as well as we look to utilize all of the produce that we have in Grenada. So if we can at some point touch on financing for agro-processors.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Barry, or?
Yeah, The question that you posed to Ms. Joseph in relation to who's responsible in terms of training, and I think this is where we need to be aware of the role of agricultural extension and where extension comes in. Now, extension is that link with the farmer, research, policy, everything. So extension fits within that ambit there. So they're responsible for the technical aspect in terms of training, in terms of, and not just providing the training, but facilitating, because not all extension officers may be able to train in certain areas, but they may be able to facilitate where the farmers can access this sort of training. And right here in Grenada, Godfrey, we have extension being provided by some of the statutory bodies. So Mr. Sinclair can speak about extension for commodity products like the nutmeg, and so you have extension there. Even MNIB have their own extension, their role as extension there. Our input suppliers, their main aim might be to generate a profit, but they do have persons that offer guidance and training within the whole idea of extension. But Godfrey, I think what is missing is that opportunity for all these extension providers to come together and facilitate a more developed approach, a more pluralistic approach to extension. And maybe later on I can speak to the efforts being made towards that, in that direction, towards bringing all the stakeholders together to help develop, because we are overlooking the importance of extension in the development of agriculture, and that's very critical. Daniel and I were discussing some key issues in regards to MNIB earlier on, and he identified a key question I think he would like to pose to Ms. Joseph.
Oh, certainly. It's common knowledge that in the 80s and 90s, the MNIB had a very robust export of commodities from Grenada. In fact, a lot of farmers, small farmers in the rural areas depended heavily on the export of those. I could talk about mango, golden apples, dasheen, a vast array of crops. Now, you would know, Ms. Joseph, that given Grenada's very small population, it's easy for things to get glutted on the market. So we always held the view that a robust export market is always very, very important to support farmers and so forth. So from your perspective as the now CEO of the MNIB, what plans do you have in terms of kind of rejuvenating the export of commodities from Grenada to whether the USA, England, or to Canada, the other countries, even within the Caribbean? What plans do you have for, rejuvenating the export of those crops?
Export is by far one of our top objectives. As part of our strategic plan, it's an area that over the last 4 or so months, we've doubled, we've passed our targets, for example, and we're looking to double our targets for next month going forward in terms of export. We're looking to also surpass the best year's performance that we've had and also expand into new markets. We also have challenges in this area in terms of being able to meet large export orders. While we may have glut on the market for some items at some times, we do not have sometimes the variety or a quick turnaround time in understanding what's on the market. And so we're looking to develop that as well with our farm contract program, identifying key export products. I know one of them we're looking at is the expansion of ginger production. We have farmers who hopefully under the Land Bank program would be looking to work with us to expand ginger exports as well. So export continue to be a major area that the MNIB is focusing on and has shifted our attention as necessary to create new avenues for the farmers to have their produce sold. In addition to that, we're also looking at the creation of value-added products geared just for export. As we know, we're very limited when we're simply trying to export fresh produce alone. Right now, we continue to have challenges, for example, with flight cancellations and so forth. So we're trying to work around that to see how we can export products that may not need to go on a plane, for example. Despite all of these challenges, we continue to push forward to export in the markets. We've started to export again to the UK and focusing on exporting to Trinidad and other regional islands, and continue to export in the US. One of the things that's important for us continue to be our HACCP recertification, and also this is important for our FDA and USDA approval to export to the US. We continue to work with exporters as well for the export of soursop and the development of that sector. So there's a lot of work going on with regards to export. It continues to be our focus, and we're just exploring all avenues for the export of our produce.
Just one advice I would like to give Ms. Joseph, she seems to be so exuberant and is that in moving forward, I think it would be very, very important that the MNIB work very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, Extension, Agronomy, and certainly the Pest Management Unit, because, you know, over the years, things have changed with pest and disease scenario. You have to, you know, ensure you get support from those persons. And even with CADI, I know before you used to have a team meeting every so often, you know, taking a holistic approach. That is what I wanted to so I think, you know, you would have to take that, you know, on board in moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. I want to just come in and ask Ms. Senator Sinclair. You mentioned in passing the whole issue of farmers. The situation is more or less one of survival. And a lot of the things that should be in place to help them to operate as a business is not present. How do we change that? Or whose responsibility it is?
You see, well, I will deal with how we change. Let us not run away. We have a government, and our government is established to have certain responsibility. And we also have government ministries and departments which has functions, and they are spelled out in different laws and regulations. So their systems are there. So we must not run away when things are difficult. We have to stay there and work and get it done. And so in terms of whose responsibility, we need to look at two aspects. And I mentioned to the Minister for Agriculture a few months ago, and up to this morning, I was, you know, chatting with a colleague on that we have to look at agriculture from two dimensions. We have to look at agriculture, which basically, to me, can almost be part of the Ministry of Social Services, which is the backyard gardening, the livelihood thing, as Dr. Barry speak about, to ensure that they can keep the little, you know, seasoning around and those things like that. But what we really need, Godfrey, and this is what this forum here is about. This forum here is not about growing half crate of tomatoes and put a bucket of cabbage for the home. This forum here is to create a transformational situation in Grenada. In fact, I repeat, and I go back to the budget statement presented in 2021 budget by the government and Minister of Finance in reading that. And they speak about redoubling efforts to create transformational and resilience and all of those things for a better agriculture system. You know, Dr. Barry speak about reducing the food import bill. We hear a lot about that. We hear the Minister for Foreign Affairs, who was former the trade, speak a lot about that, very knowledgeable in those areas. So I put all of this in context, that what I want us to be focusing on here is how do we create that sort of agriculture that would create the sort of input for the value added and also for the export and also for input substitution in a real volume and proper coordinated way. And this is what we have to talk about. And once we go there, we have to speak now of the role of government to support those initiatives. And we must not lose sight. The Ministry of Agriculture might have been sleeping for the past some years back, but the Ministry of Agriculture have to wake up. And we run away from the fact that, as Dr. Barry mentioned, our extension, our agronomy division, all of our pest management division. Only this morning I was speaking to our farmer and speaking about they need mist blowers to manage the pest and disease, you know. before the Ministry of Agriculture set up a spray team. What happened? The spray team literally dwindled to almost 2 or 3 persons. And then we say we want to have support in agriculture. And when those things don't happen, we then turn around and we blame the farmer. And that is the problem. And then, so as a result of that, what we need is to focus on those export opportunities. So as Ms. Joseph of the MNIB say, let us look, what are the 20 items, the 30 items that we can export in volumes? Link it to the Land Bank program, link it in that way and provide those supporting structure. We have an export policy, an export document. I don't know where the document is now. I'm not sure what is happening in it. Mr. James would have done a national agriculture plan for about 20, 30 years, strategic plan. Inside of it lies a lot of information as to the different export opportunities. Have we gone there, pick out those items, see what the market entry is needed, see how much is needed, what are the lands that are available, so that we can provide those, who are the farmers interested, what is the pricing, what is the production mechanism, what is the financing that might be needed to do that? Who is doing that? Nobody. Nobody. Nobody.
But who is supposed to be doing it, Senator?
Pardon me?
Who is supposed to be doing it?
Yeah, so this is the point. So the Ministry of Agriculture is a major player. The MNIB also, but the Ministry of Agriculture has to play the lead because their policy, that's government. That's government. You play the lead with MNIB, which is a national institution, which says it's for export. That is what it's there for. And then you link now with your other exporters, your other major farmers, and you provide that coordinating role. But the Ministry of Agriculture has to play the leadership. Let us not run away from that. Let us not run away from that. They provide the leadership for coordination and so on for all of these persons. And this is nothing new, you know. These things used to be happening. If you speak to Mr. Lewis, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I remember when I just went into MNIB, there was something called a tree crop committee, which was led by Cardi, and that was linked to a regional program. And so you'll see golden apple and all those deep mango, when we used to be doing all those exports, it was based on all of those things. That committee disappeared. Why? I don't know. And if someone has tried to bring it up immediately, you hear Mr. Lewis say, Miss Joseph, you know, you need to link very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, you know. so let us not run away from the topic here tonight and let the ball fall where it's supposed to fall. And then you'll find now the GDP. So when the government say, look, we are going to provide $20 million or $15 million to support agriculture export. We know these are the 20 items and we know what is needed, crates, etc., etc. And now Mr. Donald can easily give a loan because you know who are the buyers, you know the contracts are established, and all of those things. We don't even have to worry about plane because we might be able to even charter a plane after we would have invested all of these monies from the country into that. So let us not run, but let us also remember that you speak about export in the beginning. We have to understand what has happened to MNIB. In the beginning, MNIB was the main exporter. As time went on, a lot of smaller persons get involved, and so they become more competitive for MNIB. But recall, though, that just about when the revolution started, and we must not run away from that, Grenada was a beneficiary of a significant loan and grant from, I think, the USAID or the Canadian government, something to that effect, where MNIB facilities in River Road was established. There was a significant number of extensionists. Mr. Lewis should know about that. All of them were given a little Suzuki Samurai vehicle that they would pay back monthly through the bank. And so they were equipped to do those things. That time agriculture was moving on. And what happened? All of these persons retired. The vehicles and them, they would have depleted. MNIB and those facilities would have degraded. And we just sit down and then we all watch around. Let us go back and look at the history and look at what has brought us there. And let's go back and put those systems in place. Let us put those systems in place. When banana was great, we know what brought us there. We know that. Guaranteed markets, guaranteed prices.
Thank you.
We might be young, but let us not run away from those things. And let's go back to what made us great then.
Thank you, Senator. We need to take a commercial break now. When we come back from the break, I'm sure the other panelists may want to chime in on some of the things said so far, and I do have a couple of questions. We take a break, folks. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is what 1 gallon of water looks like. Now, consider these facts. It takes about 40 gallons of water to fill a bathtub. A 10-minute shower consumes around 20 gallons. Older toilets need 3 gallons per flush. An irrigation system takes anywhere between 4 to 10 gallons per minute, depending on its design. Now scale these numbers up several times for a hotel or a farm, and you'll notice thousands upon thousands of gallons being consumed each year. The truth is, we can still complete these tasks using far less water through the implementation of more efficient water solutions. The Challenge Fund, a component of the climate resilience in Grenada's water sector, also known as the G-Cruise project, can help. Administered through the Grenada Development Bank, the Challenge Fund provides the tourism and agricultural sectors with refund grant financing to implement the adoption of water-efficient solutions in their hotels and on their farms. Hydroponics, rainwater harvesting, grey water recycling systems, and water-efficient bathroom solutions are only a few of the many possibilities. Protecting our water supply is our responsibility. Water is not an infinite resource. Every drop counts. For more information on the Challenge Fund, contact the Grenada Development Bank at 440-2382.
Farmers, here is an important message from the agricultural shop on the Carenage. You have a lot invested in your operation: land, livestock, and labor. Complete your checklist with a wide range of seeds stored at the required temperature, bio-friendly liquid and traditional fertilizers, animal healthcare products, animal feeds, fungicides and insecticides, and of course, packaged soils and agricultural tools. Farmers, you work hard every day, so convert your investments into good, healthy foods and financial profits. Visit the agricultural shop at the Rennick Thompson building on the Carenage. There's just nowhere better.
It's new, innovative and classy, and a cut above the rest. Your one-stop shop for bathtubs, kitchenette, customized doors and windows, and even a new paint job. We also sell quartz and solid surface countertops. At M&N Hardware, we offer best prices, excellent service, efficiency, and reliability. Visit us at Dusty Highway, Grandin, St. George, or call telephone number 440-6757. M&N Hardware, from foundation to roof. Let's build together.
What does it take to be an amazing woman? Lots of me time. Amazing women are classy, fancy, and a little sassy. It's the drink for me. Cheers! Sometimes you've got to show them who's boss. Alpha male? Nah, alpha females are more amazing. Cheers to securing the bag. We make time for ourselves, for work, friends, and we certainly make time for passion. We're simply amazing. Amazing cream liqueur for the amazing woman in you.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Taking Agriculture Forward, part 2 of our Agri Forum. And of course, just to remind you, in case you're just joining us, our panels this evening, Mr. Daniel Lewis, Dr. Tessa Barry, Senator Roderick Sinclair, Ms. Afia Joseph, and Mr. Donald Williams. And we're looking at various areas of critical importance to the sector as we attempt to raise awareness to help take agriculture forward. Mr. Lewis, I know you wanted to respond quickly to the export issue that was raised earlier, so you can go ahead and do that.
I wanted to share a perspective on export in terms of strategy, but the honest truth is the export market generally is highly, highly competitive. We have seen many times, you try to enter the market, maybe getting a client, good prices, and then all of a sudden things go haywire. So it would be disingenuous of me if I indicate that export is easy. But one of the things you have to do, for example, if it is that you want to export commodities, you have to plan for it. You can't get up tomorrow and go and look all about, looking for, produce all over the place. And you have to meet to the clients, farmers, and develop a strategy because you don't want the export to be sustainable. Because sometimes we believe we have a lot of produce here in Grenada, only to find when people start to order containers and containers, So that is one thing. The other thing is, times have changed. The industry, the export market is becoming more and more competitive, much more difficult, and sometimes they put regulation in place that is very onerous, especially these days, a lot of issues related to food safety. I mean, if you are an exporter, you have to ensure that you adhere to a lot of the food safety principles, have traceability systems in place, so should something happen on the other end, they could trace it back to source. In addition to that, it is commonly alleged a few years ago, the United States passed a Modern Food Safety Act, which required that all exporting countries meet all the standards and so forth, and they have in place also a requirement where they would come in and do inspection and so forth. I know the Marketing Board has gotten substantial support to improve its facility, and one of the conditionalities that Marketing Board facility could be used by other exporters should they, want to export because I think they meet all the standards and so forth. So, I just wanted to say that we have, and one of the things that is impacting and could impact in the future in a significant way, in our ability to export is the whole issue of phytosanitary issues. The existence of pests and diseases. I know we used to export enormous amount of mango, and then we had the mango seed weevil, then they come to the June plum, which we call golden apple. And right now, over the last couple of years, the Ministry of Agriculture worked tirelessly with the USDA to see how we could export, even with the pests here, but you could do some radiation in the United States. So there's a lot of issue regarding export, and we just have to be planned. It's not just get up tomorrow and say, I want to export. You have to plan for it. You have to then have this necessary production to feed into your export. And that is some of the comments I wish to say, Godfrey.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Barry?
Godfrey, what I want to, and any of the panelists can probably jump in on this issue here, is that issue, well, a sort of two-part sort of question that would lead into some sort of discussion. What sort of human capital or capacity that we need as it relates to development that can help drive the sector? Because we're talking about the technical know-how, etc., and which areas these would be most needed now. And I want them to also, in answering this question, delving on Carquois Petit Martinique and how, for example, with MNIB, what efforts are being made there in relation to Carquois Petit Martinique in terms of the programs and projects offered from the GDB. How has Carquois Petit Martinique been able to tap into that? Because oftentimes we hear that they are left out, in regards to a lot of the issues that we are faced with. So if we can generate some discussion surrounding that in terms of the capacity, the human capital that is currently needed, because Senator Sinclair spoke about the role of the Ministry of Agriculture, but how are they in terms of the capacity, the necessary capacity that is needed to push the sector forward?
So panelists, Mr. Williams, you haven't said anything in a little bit. You may want to jump in first here.
Okay. With regards to the human capacity, from where I see it, I don't think there is any lack of technical ability within the local and sub-regional agriculture sector. In fact, it is my opinion that that's a sector that have a lot of highly qualified, highly experienced persons throughout. So the question therefore has to be asked, why if we have so many technical persons with a lot of experience within the sector, why is it not translating into the kind of development that we want in the sector? And that is a question that we probably would have to ask. And again, I think it has a lot to do with policy frameworks and going back to what the Senator said again, persons who have the responsibilities and the authority to do things need to get up and do it. So I don't think it's for a lack of technical people. We have a lot of highly qualified persons throughout the sector. Also, probably we need to look at the human capital at a lower level in terms of the actual involvement in farming. And what we find is that even though we have a lot of qualified, highly technical persons, a lot of them are not directly involved in farming itself. Now, how can we get them? And even those that are, it's like a side something. It's not a fully commercial agricultural type operations. Now, how can we get all those persons with all the technical expertise, etc., to actually get involved in farming? And I think the approach could be for, you heard Senator Sinclair said that, okay, we would always have the sustenance type operations. But that alone wouldn't drive the sector. So what we have to do is to support them, provide the kind of support that they need so that they could continue to eke out a livelihood for themselves and their family. But we must also go further and try and get now some significant commercial type operations within the sector. And that is going to attract people of high quality at that lower production level. And not we have a sector that is top heavy with technical persons in the ministries and in some of the research organizations and writing a lot of papers and policies, but nobody's actually doing anything on the ground to drive the sector. So I don't really think the challenge is whether we have persons. I think is where they're involved and how can we get them involved in the actual moving of the sector. Right? I think what we would have to do is to find a way to get our young persons more actively involved in farming itself. So yes, we have young persons going off on the trade, they go off and train, etc., and they come back and they work in the extension and they work in the ministries and they work in CARDI and a lot of other areas. And some of them go into academia and teach, etc. But that is not giving us the necessary boost that we want in the sector. How can we get those young persons to come back and be directly involved in farming? And I think in order to do that, we have to first start looking at how can we make farming a more attractive proposition for those young persons. And that probably is the conversation we need to have in terms of moving that sector forward.
Mr. Lewis?
Been posed by Dr. Barry in terms of the human resource needed. Over the years, we have seen how the absence of key experts in the field could impact in a negative way. What has been happening, we'll just have to take a step back and reflect on, introspect on what transpired over the last couple of years. We have seen increasingly now a lot of issues, challenges with respect to pests and diseases. For example, let me just go back to 1985, 86, around 87, when we had the onset of the pink millibug in Grenada and in the Caribbean in general. We couldn't find an entomologist. An entomologist is somebody who specializes in insect problems related, specialists in insects. They had to go as far as India to get an entomologist. You understand? In India, we couldn't find one in the Caribbean. Similarly, we see a preponderance of diseases just rampaging in the Caribbean because the only shoot are plant pathologists, people who specialize in pests and in diseases. So there is key expertise needed. For example, I made mention just a while ago the importance of food safety. Food safety is becoming increasingly important, and if you don't have good food safety systems in place, that could impinge negatively on your ability to export, and even to ensure that the food produced meets the requirement for even your national consumption. So people that have expertise in food safety. Post-harvest technologies, very, very important. Because, for example, it is estimated that in some cases you could lose as much as 40% of your harvested crops if you do not have the right post-harvest, technology in place. The Ministry of Agriculture implemented some projects in the around 2000 up to about 2008 with EU funding. And where the people who got all the projects, it was a French company, Farmex Technology, because we do not have people that have the necessary expertise. And these people work all over the world. What we essentially have been saying, there is some key specialities which I think we have to encourage when you look at human resources, the needs and things. Irrigation is becoming increasingly important, irrigation. But we don't have the expertise in it. So that's another critical, very critical one. Right now, it is often said that there is a high importation of meat and meat products, but we need people who specialize in livestock so they could adequately, advise whether they're going to small ruminants or they're going to pigs or what it is. So all these are very, very important. For example, the issue of right now, with the impact of climate change, we need people who have the expertise in climate-smart agriculture approaches. So yes, we have people with general knowledge, but you need all these. So these are experts, very important. One of the things, and lastly, I would want to talk about, we have been clamoring for the longest while in the ministry, for example, food technologies. We're talking about value added, because as you go along the value chain, persons who get involved in agro-processing, they go there, rather than the primary material. So I remember some years ago, we had an Indian specialist who developed fantastic recipes in different things. That's the kind of person we have. I know there is move afoot now to provide support, but you need those areas. So, in synthesis, I think these are some of the, from my standpoint, some key areas I think you need persons with this, expertise to provide support for the sector.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mm-hmm. I just want to bring in Ms. Joseph, and I'm coming to Mr. Senator Sinclair as it relates to the issue of export, because Senator mentioned, being able to identify maybe 20 crops that we can focus on for export, so it can really make sense. What about production? Are we in a position to sustain that? So we identify, let's say, 10 specific crops that we want to produce for export. Do we have the capacity to maintain the production of those crops so that when a request is made for them, they are readily available? Ms. Joseph?
I was going to allow Roderick to speak, but one of the challenges, I would say no. From my observation, having moved into my role, we do not have the foundation sorted out for sustainable export. We have very small lots. The farmers, by extension, most farmers have very small lots. We can't compete on price, nor can we compete on volumes. We do not own the means to, we don't have a boat, for example, or a plane, a chartered plane. We don't have the access. So we're really at the mercy of the different companies that offer that service. And we're very grateful for those that do. The other thing would be, if we need to, and how do we solve this problem? We need to have mass production of, as Roderick mentioned, a number of products. We can choose 5, we can choose 3, we can start with 1. However, those foundation systems need to be in place. One of the challenges we've encountered already is that even if we secure a massive export order for continuous export to a country, for example, like Barbados, our produce cannot go to Barbados. The pest control work has not been done. And so these issues create setbacks in the national goal for export. And so you have to build the foundation before you lay the blocks. And one of the things we continue to work on our end is how we can facilitate correcting the foundational issues with export. But I must say we can't do it alone. We need to ensure that the markets that we want to get our products into, we have done all the pest analysis. We have gotten approval to enter, have our products enter into those markets. Even in the region, we are struggling to get our produce into some of these islands. So it's a combined effort, I must say, and we need, collaborative decision on it. MNIB exclusively can't say that we're marketing and selling and exporting a product that, say, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture hasn't also agreed that we're going to be producing, providing support, input, and minimizing the cost of managing what the cost is to the farmers. So it's a collaborative effort by all involved to take export forward. But we continue to press on despite these challenges.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Joseph. Just before, I know Mr. Lewis wants to ask you a question, but I just want Senator Sinclair to weigh in on the question that Dr. Barry asked as it relates to the e-export.
Yeah, and I have a small question for Daniel to be sure, but all the specialists you speak about, where should they really reside? That's a different discussion. Yes, you see, and Daniel said it earlier, because planning is not only at the farmer end. The farmer is literally the end product. We need to be having what I call business relationships and business partnership with what I would refer to as investors. We speak a lot about the CBI program and all of these people coming in to be citizens by investors and so on. And that is a different aspect of investment. But we need to, in Grenada, our exporters, the MNIB, etc., need to be having business arrangement with whether it's Sainsbury or whether it's Albertsons in the US or whatever it is, some food chain. They have to have a business relationship. Of course, as Mr. Lewis mentioned, the standards and the quality and so on, those are issues. But hey, Kirani James, our gold medalist and say a triple Olympic medalist, didn't get there by chance. He had to put in all the work to get there. And so if we want to be the Olympics winners and Olympians of exports, we have to put in the work and we have to put in the investment to get it done. And so we need partnerships. So our importer on the other side should not be seen as someone like a number. It should be part of a business relationship where these individuals would even invest backward into Grenada. So, for example, they may say, we will assist you with fertilizer and this and other technical support, so that could reduce the cost to the farmer. So you create a full multi-party where everyone have a stake in this, and this is where we need to go. Now, MNIB and the other exporters, we need to go out into the market. But of course, we have seen what happened in areas like Brazil and so on, where they have used the embassies to make those connections, because you need that issue of trust and validation. So our embassies are very well set up for that. It come back to the point again. When we look at our old issue, I don't want to say selling passport versus my investment. We appoint agents who go about and promote Grenada as a good place to have a citizen, and we go sell you a passport, and we do that for that. Why can't we sort of mirror those examples and tweak it and say, let us go and find partners to come back and partner with MNIB or with Tom Jones, who can work now to soursop, mangoes, or whatever it is. This is what we need in our Godfrey. So even if Ms. Joseph and the MNIB team and the ministry may do well there, if you don't have that market secure, and Daniel will tell you that, the fall of banana, this was a guaranteed market. They had the boats tied up into that whole marketing scheme, and as geese continued to crumble, as the market became competitive and they diversified sourcing from Latin America and other places, Grenada and the Caribbean and Windward Island came out of it. But if you look at what GIFs are doing, they're providing the boxes, they're providing technical support, a lot of those things in that mechanism. When you go back, it's a more advanced form of, I would say, imperialism from back then, because you know what happened before. When the England and so on were investing, they were owning big estates in Grenada, and they were basically, ripping the country from those resources and going to away, and Grenada and the other Caribbean countries were not benefiting from that. No, we are smarter, we are more intelligent, we understand the new dynamics, where we now need to work on those business relationships and say, no, come and invest with us to produce so that we can supply you those nice products that you want, the healthy products from Grenada. We can work with you to do that. That is the direction we have to do. And the government, as what I call a primary diplomat, need to help us here with those things. Through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through our embassies. This is what we have to be doing.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Barry, I know you were following some of the comments on Facebook. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us from that platform?
Yes, two key points came out there. One in relation to the Fresh Produce Exporters Act. One viewer is saying that we need to enforce that act so that, we would be able to export at a certain standard, because our export market would be at risk if we do not produce, if that act isn't enforced. And then there's another point that speaks to adopting a bottom-up approach as it relates to agriculture, so that the standard, the good agricultural practice standards are enhanced and adhere to here before we are able to, export and realize the standard that is out there. So those are some key points that came in. But another point that also came in, which is why I had asked the question in relation to Carriacou and Petit Martinique. How are we seeing Carriacou and Petit Martinique within the whole agricultural sector? What has been done there? And that's probably where we would want to probably touch in on the blue economy, given Carriacou and Petit Martinique experience in relation to the fishery sector, in relation to the boat building sector, etc. And these are sectors that we have not, really expounded on much in our discussion. So probably our panelists can speak to Carriacou and Petit Martinique to a certain extent there.
Right. We have a break coming up shortly, but Dr. Barry, I want to direct something to you. Last week, you made mention of the role of women and youth in agriculture. Can you talk a little bit about that? We have about 5 minutes before we go to the break.
Well, we need a succession plan. And to have a succession plan, you need to engage the youth in it. And there's that saying that the youth are not interested in agriculture, etc. But I want to maybe not subscribe too much to that statement, because I believe that youths are interested out there. Is the enabling environment that is needed to bring them on board. And when we speak about agriculture, as we alluded to last week, we cannot only speak about agriculture from a primary production perspective. We have a lot of youths out there, Godfrey, who are they're bringing on excellent initiatives. I know of this young lady who is making dominoes with the spices infused in it, and this is an excellent idea. A young lady by the name of Miss Gibbs, she now would therefore need that sort of support, that enabling environment that would push her further into it. And that's agriculture, because she's using the spices. So it's not necessarily only in primary production. So we need a succession plan. We need to find how, the opportunities. And there have been some opportunities from the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, in the Agricom project, etc. Youth in agriculture opportunities provided. But we need to get them, involved and get them to be able to access these opportunities, not just for primary production, but also for, the value-added aspect and other initiatives in the food and beverage sector, in the logistics sector, in the transport sector, across the entire food system, across the chain, not just from primary production. So that aside, also as it relates to women, there's this saying that if a woman is involved, then the entire home, then the entire community, then the entire country, and by extension, the world. So we need to provide that opportunity for, we have a saying here, and oftentimes that we believe that in the Caribbean that we don't have a gender issue. We do have a gender issue in the region as it relates to, because women, they experience things different. They do things different. So sometimes the opportunities, just for example, a simple training opportunity, the time in which we would, set that training opportunity has to be considered in terms of what is happening and how the women can access that. So as it relates to women in agriculture, we need to have certain concerted efforts, and there have been, because over the years, because of what is seen as a disadvantage in certain aspects, there have been concerted effort made towards, bringing in women more into the sector and providing opportunities more for them. And I see, for example, with the Land Bank project, there's a specific effort made for women and youth in terms of access to the land, and I think that's a very good initiative. So these are some things that we can address as it relates to encouraging women and youth within the sector and getting them engaged. If you look at Grenada's agro-processing sector, for example, is many women, many women. So the enabling environment there for them should be enhanced and invested more into, so that we could get them to develop further and employ persons, more and more persons within the sector.
I think this is something we miss along the way, because when we see these women going around, I recall some weeks ago it was featured in our nightly news. There was a young lady who was producing flour from our ground provision, the dasheen, the breadfruit, the yams, and all of that. So all of these things, they're all part of agriculture. And I think this is some part that we miss, because we tend to think of agriculture basically as planting of crops and rearing of animals, and it stops there. Yeah. So I think it is something that we need to expose and bring awareness to, that agriculture goes way beyond that.
And Godfrey, I think we are poised in terms of our education system to help provide it. For example, TAMCC has the Marabou Farm School. What is being offered there? In relation to the sector, we shouldn't just only offer, aspects of primary production. If you look at the University of Florida, Gatorade, is a product that emanated from a university. Why can't we have products emanating from our agricultural, our agricultural department within the TAMCC? There they're making products that you can label as a product of the agricultural department within TAMCC. And there are study opportunities along the line that we can invest in from the government perspective, or even the private sector, because we're talking about public-private partnership. I don't know if Hubbards know that, but I was a recipient partly of some funding they gave many years ago through Marisho House. And it went a long way, So these are opportunities that can also come from the private sector in terms of, maybe helping somebody in relation to food safety handling, sending someone to study in relation to post-harvest handling, technology, those are, and then extension is a whole other area that I would like to expound on to Godfrey, but we take a break now.
Yes. So we take the break, and when we come back as well, we will engage our listeners and viewers. We would invite them to make their contribution. They can call if they have any questions. We will accommodate them. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
This is what 1 gallon of water looks like. Now, consider these facts. It takes about 40 gallons of water to fill a bathtub. A 10-minute shower consumes around 20 gallons. Older toilets need 3 gallons per flush. An irrigation system takes anywhere between 4 to 10 gallons per minute, depending on its design. Now scale these numbers up several times for a hotel or a farm, and you'll notice thousands upon thousands of gallons being consumed each year. The truth is, we can still complete these tasks using far less water through the implementation of more efficient water solutions. The Challenge Fund, a component of the Climate Resilience in Grenada's water sector, also known as the G-Cruise project, can help. Administered through the Grenada Development Bank, the Challenge Fund provides the tourism and agricultural sectors with refund grant financing to implement the adoption of water-efficient solutions in their hotels and on their farms. Hydroponics, rainwater harvesting, grey water recycling systems, and water-efficient bathroom solutions are only a few of the many possibilities. Protecting our water supply is our responsibility. Water is not an infinite resource. Every drop counts. For more information on the Challenge Fund, contact the Grenada Development Bank at 440-2382.
Farmers, here is an important message from the agricultural shop on the Carenage. You have a lot invested in your operation: land, livestock, and labor. Complete your checklist with a wide range of seeds stored at the required temperature, bio-friendly liquid and traditional fertilizers, animal healthcare products, animal feeds, fungicides and insecticides, and of course, packaged soils and agricultural tools. Farmers, you work hard every day, so convert your investments into good, healthy foods and financial profits. Visit the agricultural shop at the Rennick Thompson building on the Carenage. There's just nowhere better.
There is an auto repair center that is revolutionizing the way they do business. Presenting Premium Auto Services Limited. We offer wheel alignment, diagnostic scan, AC servicing, transmission fluid exchange, power steering fluid flush, just to name a few. We are in fact your one-stop auto repair center for motor cars, SUVs, pickups, buses, and even trucks. We're on the Calivini Main Road and boast of a highly skilled professional team. We are trusted and highly recommended, and most of all, certified by Master Align. Visit us today or call 439-4000. Premium Auto Services Limited, your complete auto care center.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
and Valley Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sonatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Clarisil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills and Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills and Valley, your health is our business.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Taking Agriculture Forward. Mr. Lewis, you have a question. We want to take about 3 quick questions because, of course, we want to engage our listeners. They didn't have the opportunity last week, so we want to do it now. So let's go with your question, and then I think we have 2 more, and then we would go to our telephone.
Yes, I have a question for Ms. Joseph, the CEO of Marketing Board. You know, I mean, given Grenada lack of economies of scale, we are small. So many times there are challenges in terms of sustaining an export market. So I want to ask her, to what extent, you know, there is effort afoot maybe to collaborate with the other similar marketing boards in the Windward Islands, just in this same way, you know, that our banana industry before worked together, you know, and they quite successfully over the years. Is there a move afoot to look at collaborating with the similar marketing board, Ms. Joseph, so that you could, you know, sustain whatever export market you have and so forth, you know?
We have reached out to St. Vincent, for example, who had been interested in working with us, and I know the Minister of Agriculture was quite instrumental in that support. Since the volcano, we had to pull back on that, but it's something that we are obviously looking into, and doing some research as well on St. Mary's in Jamaica, learning about the agro-processed products that they are doing now as well. But I believe that more engagement is needed on our part, and it's something that I will take as a recommendation.
Right. Now, Mr. Williams, I want to come to you. As it relates to your contribution to providing some support, and I'm looking now at projects and programs. Do you have anything in the pipeline that is available for people in the sector? Farmers, people who are involved in agro-processing. Someone on Facebook mentioned horticulture. What is there in the pipeline from the GDB's side to give support there?
As it relates to support from our point of view, well, you know, our emphasis is on financing, but we also get involved in some level of hand-holding. And what we've been looking to do is to collaborate with various stakeholders in the sector so that we can help build some level of capacity through training as well as accessing technical support through places like CTCS, etc. With regards to financing, though, last week I mentioned that government MSME COVID-19 support fund. And inside of there, one of the things we're trying to do with that fund is to target persons within sectors, and the agriculture sector being one of them, where we can encourage innovation and new development aimed at sustained quality production going forward. So we have a few financing products. We also collaborating with a number of projects through the Ministry of Finance and other ministries. We have been working with the Agricom project. We have been working with the Cruise project, etc., to see how we could bring some benefits to that sector. But we have a challenge right now in terms of our financing arrangements, right? Because we source financing from the CDB and other financiers, and every now and then you get a line of credit, and then you finally run out of the line of credit, and you have to negotiate again and get government guarantees, etc. So we have some financing challenges. But we have been getting some support from the government, and what we're trying to do, Mr. Lewis spoke about the food security issue, and that is an area of concern for us. So we're looking at what we can do to get more youthful involvement in agriculture. But one of the things we've noticed is that we have had a number of persons who would have come up with some small innovations, maybe some sample products, etc., and they approach the bank. And I think Dr. Barry alluded to persons coming up. I think they mentioned somebody with flour and other things like that. And there are quite a few of those things coming up. The problem with that is those are not bankable. Now, when that happens, you now have to take that to, in other words, you have to have a system of support that would now be able to commercialize those before you can take them to where they could get a commercial loan, right? So there need to be some kind of support before they get to the financing institution, where you could help them commercialize those things and bring them at a level where they're now commercially and financially viable, and then the bank can consider financing, because we are a financing institution, and you finance viable undertakings, right? So yes, we've been working with stakeholders to see what we can do, but there needs to be a system for when we have persons with those kind of little innovations, that the system can help them and push them along to take it to a commercial nature where they can now approach the bank for financing.
Okay, thank you very much. One last question from my end before we go to our telephone, and any one of the panelists can take this. As it relates to policy, we've heard a lot of things being said here this evening, a lot of what needs to be done, a lot of what has to be done. Do we have the policies in place to ensure that these things are done? And if we do, why aren't these policies put to work? If not, then shouldn't we be moving in that direction? Any member of the panel can take it.
Policy is as important as its implementation. If you have laws and you're not enforcing the laws, it's useless. I think over the years, a concerted effort has been made to put in place good policies. And but I think sometimes, I think we fall down in terms of not implementing as robustly as we possibly can, So that is one of the things. And clearly, as time evolves and, things change a lot, some of the policies need to be refined and, modified somewhat to reflect the, modern day reality. And so I think that is one of, like I could tell you, we have substantial amount. And similarly, we have a lot of laws in place in agriculture. And again, the reality changing, you need to do, and I think in time some have been modified, I think, to reflect the reality of today. So to answer your question, yes, indeed, we have a lot of policies and also laws, regulations, and so forth. One thing I want to say about Godfrey, somebody sent a note to say I should talk a little on the horticultural sector. We talk a lot about food and things, but as agriculture is vast area, different area. Ornamental horticulture is very important, and over the years, Grenada had once a vibrant export of vast array of different gingers, heliconias, a lot of foliage and so forth. And what we see now increasingly, because Grenadians live more opulent lifestyles, now we're seeing increasingly there is a good market, even on the local market, a good market, local market for horticultural product. I know there is more food to enhance the production of, I know the Complete Caribbean original institution has been providing some support for training and, capacity building in one sense and infrastructure support on the other. So, and again, Agricom, the cut flowers clusters will be benefiting from financing from the Agriculture Competitiveness Project. Is a $4 million project being implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say, and again, and when you look at most women, females are the one that is driving that more or less, a question was somewhere about youth and women. So it is a sector that I said has enormous potential, both the local market and for export,
Mm-hmm. Someone also mentioned or asked, what about the production of sea moss and lambi?
Yes, and you know what? There is a high demand for sea moss. I don't know, even in the US, in England, somebody called from Canada, sometimes I put them onto somebody who's doing sea moss now because people producing it. So again, it's another dimension to diversify in the sector in a way. So there's enormous opportunities, and I just want people to embrace, and whatever you do, put the professional touch to it, and the dedication, the commitment. You would certainly meet obstacles along the way, but don't let that deter you from moving forward,
Okay, so I'd like us to engage our listeners. Just before we go to the telephone, Dr. Barry, a quick comment you wanted to?
Yeah, just in relation to the question on policies,
Mm-hmm.
a statement I want to make on that is that we shouldn't reinvent or invent the wheel, but get that wheel turning. And that's in relation to what Mr. Lewis was saying. The policies are there. but the implementation. So we need to get the wheel turning, not reinvent the wheel or invent another wheel, but turn that wheel.
Yeah. So then we need Senator Sinclair to continue to light some more fire in the Senate to get these wheels turning. Senator?
I want to light a little fire here now. Actually, it's very important point there. And in fact, there are a few things I want to make. The issue of agribusiness. I think that the Ministry of Agriculture, we need to rename this ministry from Ministry of Agriculture to the Ministry of Agribusiness. See, sometimes depending on your naming, it keeps you focused. And I think that would better equip the ministry based on saying agribusiness in terms of the sort of pillars that it needs in terms of human resources, etc., to provide the support for the whole value chain and development. So that is something that I think that the government need to do, rename the ministry, restructure it in line to provide agribusiness support, and not just agriculture, because otherwise we'll end up with the same little backyard sustenance operation and not a transformational operation. Now, you see the issue of policy, and Daniel, we don't even have to go and create new policies. There are a lot of things that are there that we're not doing. And the question is, who is responsible? Now, when you look at the Ministry of Agriculture that has spent almost a year without a chief agriculture officer, which is supposed to be the person that is coordinating the technical work, not the administrative work or who pay who and those things. The technical work, which is what's supposed to support what we're talking about here. They have nobody. You know, finally, yes, we have to congratulate that something has happened finally, and we hope he get a chance to do his work and they give him the necessary support. But when you look at, for example, there's a labor support program that the government is going to run again. Last season, it was run out at the constituency offices. Now, what I'm hearing, farmers are calling me and complaining that we are going there again. So like the Ministry of Agriculture doesn't even seem to know how to implement a program like that. So you have to put it in the constituency office. You had a problem with the how they call it, that farm machinery program in Maribo. We shut it down because they don't know how to operate it. The government estates, we say, well, they're not producing, so we shut it down and we give other persons, and that again, even some of them is a mess. When you go to Carriacou, for example, you see nice farm machineries, you have a program going on, Carriacou Farmers Association, they may have little issues, but things happening there. So I start asking myself, is that do we need to go to look and see what is happening in Carriacou to learn and transfer those knowledge to Grenada to make things happen? I don't. This is where my mind is based on the research I've been doing in recent time. So, you know, look at the poultry policy. We had a meeting today. I'm chairing a committee to look at the various stakeholders so that we could go to government. And that is as our government interaction resulted in this committee that I'm chairing. And again, everybody was speaking about where is implementation. I said, let us implement, even if it's two things, let us do it. Even if it's part we could implement, let's do it. But I will tell you, Godfrey, a lot of reasons also why implementation is not taking place is because our public servants, our administrators are failing to act. They're failing to read. In fact, I was in a police farm watch meeting in Guav last night in the police station. Our Minister for Agriculture was there too. And one of the superintendent, assistant superintendent, the lady in charge, police, she made a very important point. And she started asking some questions and say, are we reading the laws? Does people understand what the laws and regulations? And I say, you know, this is so insightful. So sometimes things that are happening, Godfrey, because we don't even know he exists. I close my case.
Thank you very much, Senator Sinclair. Our telephone number is 440-1252. We invite our listeners and viewers to call with their questions. And of course, if you have a question you want to direct to any one of our panelists, you can do so. I think we have a caller on the line. Caller, good evening. Welcome to Taking Agriculture Forward. Well, we seem to have lost that caller. So just to remind you folks, the number is on your television screen. Those of you listening to radio, our telephone number is 440-1252. You want to make a contribution to the program, you can do so. All right, and don't forget, you want to direct a question to any of the panelists, you can do so. All right. We have a caller online. Caller, good evening.
Yes, good night, ladies and gentlemen, agriculture. Now, we are a very small nation. I know in the past and agriculture was booming in the past and thing, in the early days after Janet and thing, it was booming. Now, from 1976, something gave it, take over all the estates and thing in the island and cut up some of the Islamic pastures and different thing. But we need to plant back Grenada, get Grenada back culture back again. Plant back food in Grenada, man. It's time we banana expensive in Grenada. Let us plant back banana, cocoa, and nut, all them things back again in this. If you check out the whole of Grenada, it's empty land, you know. People live in about 5% land in Grenada, and the land produce agriculture about 10%. And all the bands are empty land, you know. We're not empty. We got to train people in the home for agriculture. Agriculture thing people might like and then 100% even go into it from small, you know. We got to go agriculture from small, you know. And now I start to help all with the water and all too. Now I start need to use water from the river to do agriculture work instead of using pipe water. All them things, you know. I mean, all the things we do, go back to organic manure. All them things is important, you know.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much for your contribution. The telephone number 440-1252. You know, someone is saying on the WhatsApp platform that commercial CMOS and lambi farming, we need to dedicate a few of our inlets to be used specifically for lambi and the CMOS, where we can speak to export tons of lambi and CMOS, not a couple £100. That's a comment from one of our Facebook viewers. We have a caller online. Good evening, caller.
A pleasant good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
I have been listening to your program, and there are quite a lot of very important ideas that came about. But first of all, I'd like to suggest that in order that agriculture should go forward the way it should, there needs to be togetherness. And when I say togetherness, all farmers, backyard farmer, commercial farmer, everybody must get together. And in order that things should go the way it ought to go, one, I think you need to have an experimental plot so that young people, and this is to target the young people, to come in and to see how certain plants are planted, like potato and others. Even the farmers too, because some of them might say, well, I've been farming so much years, and why I have to go and loan to plant this or loan to plant that? That would be to their benefit. The other point that I want to make is that I think that agricultural tools, if you make an appeal to the government, should be duty-free. So that when we go to buy a cutlass, or the case may be, all right, it won't be that expensive. And one last point. We have the Sargasso weed coming in there and shows all over the place. I think if we get someone to collect it and throw it in the land, that can be a good manure. Plus you have cow manure, sheep, and all the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Panelists, anybody wants to comment on?
I think he's right about having a model farm so that people who are desirous, and especially for more uptake from the young persons, young people, for agriculture, like one of the points is, if it is that you could, because young people are technologically savvy and they would be more adept to, getting involved in things where they could use technology, and indeed agriculture could go high-tech if you look at like hydroponics and all these things, So the point is well taken. You could have models where model farmers demonstrating different things, greenhouses and, irrigation managed to a computer, all this kind of thing, could attract young persons. So the point is well taken.
Thank you very much.
Just to add in relation to that, the sargassum seaweed aspect, I know there are persons, for example, I have a friend in the US who is very interested in probably investing in something like that. So, that's where the research comes into, what can be done with it. And there are examples out there. For example, we have things right here on the market that are being used that were produced outside of Grenada from the sargassum seaweed that the farmers use. Yes. So, this is an opportunity we cannot miss. So it's a valid point.
No, definitely, because of course one of the companies who have supported this program, I know they do have the liquid sargassum fertilizer. That's the agricultural shop on the Carolina. So definitely, point well taken. We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
To the senator, I feel your pain. I sympathize with you. You are given a task almost impossible. Now, however, I want to ask you a question. What is the biggest impediment to small and medium farmers in Grenada? That's to the senator.
Yeah, thank you, caller. Senator?
So that is one question. What is the biggest impediment?
Yes.
I would say a guaranteed market with that is tied in with a good price that would make what they're doing profitable, and that would tie in with the necessary support. You must have a market. That is what's going to cause you to continually repeating. That is significant. That is what I ask, because one point I have to answer that, so I can't give other option.
We have another caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome.
Hello, good night.
Yes, good evening.
And panelists, I want to find out, maybe you can explain to me about plans you have in building the capacity of the farmers and specialization, collectivity, and unity. In order to advance and to build the sector, I believe we should also form on that pillars. And I want to congratulate Senator Sincere and the motions that he brought in Parliament. Yeah? But however, building capacity is very important when you look at the aging community of farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. A quick comment from our Facebook platform. Someone is saying sustainable land management should be top, and that's in terms of focus on agriculture. He's saying not sure if we have capable extension offers to advise the farmers as to their farming techniques, especially on slopes and hillside. Dr. Barry?
Maybe it's a good point. A good time to chime in on extension and the role of extension. We do have the capacity in terms of the what extension could offer. But Godfrey, I want to take this moment to speak about bringing together extension and extension providers. And we have a platform that is supported by the Caribbean Agricultural Extension Network and the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services, which is the Global Forum for Extension. And the Ministry of Agriculture is supporting this endeavor to bring together extension providers so that we can build the capacity and continue to build the capacity of extension, which, and I alluded to earlier on the importance of extension. So this effort would be launched on the 26th of August via Zoom. So it'd be a virtual launch at 10 a.m. So if you can look at probably on Facebook, and so for the link, and persons who are interested can join in. And there's also an opportunity for persons who want to be a part of the effort, to be a part of the effort for bringing extension together. In that way, we would be able to bring the capacity, centralize the capacity that we have, so that we'll be able to tap into it and broaden the development of extension, and by extension, agriculture.
Okay, thank you. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller.
Pleasant good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Just a very interesting topic, discussion, the panelists. Especially a special good evening to you, Mr. Daniel Lewis. I have a few questions and then want to make general comments, because the agriculture in terms of livelihood and development of the country is very dynamic. And so overall, all the panelists touch on very critical areas that has to be reviewed analyzed, and capacity has to be built going forward. But there are three things that I believe would lend to the development of agriculture in terms of us moving forward in this dispensation with the challenges we have. And the first one, we have to understand that Grenada climate and the Caribbean in general, we have 12 months of summer, and our productivity should reflect that. We don't have a winter where there is a phase of almost half a year where nothing can be grown. We grow crops from January to December, and we have to take full advantage of that. We have to look at the recommission of the government estate. Now, I'm a public servant. I'm currently employed with the Ministry of Agriculture. And some years ago, the government took a decision to quote-unquote commercialize the government estate. It is something that was discussed maybe at the last moment. I don't think it was properly thought through. And now we have several estates virtually non-functional. So we've probably lost the opportunity to have some sort of monoculture and target export crops with higher values that we can get to the UK and even our regional market and to the US. So land use, land tenure, that has to be reevaluated, and we have to re-engage what is happening. That could also support the shortage and the lack of fulfilling quotas that Marketing Board is suffering with, and it's seen that as a restraint on the industry. Pest and disease control. Post-harvesting, pre-harvesting conditions and handling. We have been riddled for the last maybe 2 decades from the millibug, come up now to what we have recently, the croton scale. And that aspect of agriculture has suffered severe blows with the loss of technical people with the capability to protect our farmers by sharing knowledge and sharing the technologies that we have that we really need. So we have seen a decline in the production again. The last and most important thing of agriculture, I always look at it, is the marketing. And this is where Marketing Board come in. And I have several questions, but in the interest of time, I will ask just this one, because I think our marketing strategy needs to be re-evaluated and needs to be highly developed on not just fresh produce, but value added and reaching, accessing the markets out there. To Ms. Joseph from Marketing Board, do you see it a possibility? Do you think the possibility exists that outside of Grenada, of the local market, Marketing Board could literally set up a warehouse, a distribution center, maybe where we have probably the largest diaspora, New York City? I mean, stand corrected. But do you see Marketing Board venturing and setting up these depots outside of Grenada borders so that you have direct shipping and then redistribution from the centers to kind of quell the issues we have with marketing and accessing marketing abroad? And maybe, say, for example, Trinidad, that's 90 miles away. And that, I think, is one of the sticking points. We have to look at Marketing Board in terms of accessing market, because we can produce a lot here. And there are several factors that hinder in us right now.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Ms. Joseph?
This is a comment that I heard on as well from a number of persons who gave suggestions as to how we can enhance that access to markets even as close as Trinidad. So it's something we would look into. I know it's not something that we believe we have the capacity currently due to our financial constraints, but it's definitely something we should look at broadly with our board and the Ministry of Agriculture as to how exactly we create the model for export. Currently, we do export, but we still have some challenges with not having personnel on the other end helping us to manage the items when it gets there. So suggestion definitely noted, and we will look into that as well.
Okay. So we have one final call that we can take for this evening before we allow our panelists to make their closing comments. Caller, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening to all on the panel. When I first started listening to the program, I thought it was an entertainment program. But when I continued listening, I realized how serious this program is. Very, very serious indeed. And it is a very good program. Now, we spoke a lot about export. Now, I want to speak something concerning imports. Now, the fact of the matter is, we talk a lot about food security. Food security is not 2 yam and 2 pumpkin in the bush. That is not food security. We have to look at this sector from a different point of view. Now, it's coming up to the point whereby people who are importing food in Grenada, they are finding it very difficult to import food in Grenada because of the cost factor. And therefore, when they are unable to import food into Grenada, and we are not producing in Grenada, we are not producing food in Grenada, what will eventually happen? We'll starve in Grenada. That is the end result of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. And that was our final call for this evening because we're almost out of time. So I want to give, I'll give the panelists maybe about a minute and a half to make some closing comments. And I want to start with Ms. Joseph because there was one thing I wanted her to just touch on briefly for me. And she can probably use that as part of her closing remarks. And it had to do with the contracts, I think you mentioned last week, that are offered to farmers in relation, well, with that relationship with the marketing board in terms of their products. Ms. Joseph? So your closing comments and responding to that.
Right. I also want to, if it's okay, to respond to that person that asked about Caribou. I feel like we have not really addressed that. In terms of the marketing board, we also extend our farm contracts to farmers in Caribou. I look forward to having a visit there soon to engage with farmers. Right now, we ship produce from Grenada to Caribou, and I feel like there can be a sustainable model where the farmers in Caribou can produce products for Caribou and probably even provide to us certain things that they can produce better probably, and also to supply to our outlets up there, which will be able to feed the Caribou and Petit Martinique and by extension other islands further up. So we are intending to do some work with Caribou. We also have some farmers who have already joined our farm contract program from Caribou, and we're very grateful for that as well. In terms of the farm contracts, we have our farm contract program that has started. We have farmers that have signed up and have started to produce already. We have over 50 farmers that have already started to engage in production. The challenge that we have, as we've mentioned before several times, is the production issue. We need to have the products in order to export and in order to market and to sell and to have that confidence to do so even locally and internationally. And so the farm contract program and organized production, as I call it, is essential in my view for the agricultural sector to move forward. It allows farmers to understand what other farmers are producing so we don't have the surplus of one item on the market and the shortage of others. Also, farmers on our farm contract program, they will be able to choose from a wide list. Actually, we're contracting out all of our produce items from herbs to root crops to farmers, and the farmers have that opportunity where they can get guaranteed sales, guaranteed markets for a 12-month period for their production. So I think it's a wonderful thing for the farmers that their produce is sold even before the seed goes into the ground, and I feel like this is critical for the sector. We are inviting other persons to join the program. We look forward to have a meeting during the month of September with all the farmers under the program to understand how the marketing board can support in terms of ensuring that they are successful on their farms with the program. And this has to do with what we need to do, how do we facilitate input cost and all of these things. So we, as the management of marketing board, we believe that we have some ideas. We have heard a lot, but we also want to meet with the farmers to understand exactly what help and what support is needed right now and going forward in order to make the farm contract program successful. We believe that if the farmers are successful, we at the marketing board as well can be successful, the nation will be successful, and the sector by extension. So we invite all persons who haven't signed up as yet. And one of the most important things I think for the farmers is that they negotiate their price ahead so they know what they are getting for their produce. And I know this is one of the challenge that farmers has expressed that they had with the marketing board. So under the farm contract program, this will not be an issue for the farmers. Our focus at this time, in addition to different partnerships with agro-processors and so forth and value-added products, is to really ensure that the farm contract program, which we believe is a very good thing for the sector, to be successful. I thank you as well, and I thank everybody else, and I'm just very happy that we are able to be here on behalf of the marketing board for this program.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joseph. Mr. Williams, your closing comments?
Yes, Godfrey. Well, let me start by saying once again, it has been a pleasure for me to be part of this panel. One thing I want to raise on, I think during our discussion this afternoon, we missed it. The importance of farmers themselves helping and coming together to provide support. And they need to do that in the form of strong, properly developed and structured farmers organizations. In countries and other areas where farming has been very successful, there have always been very strong farmers organizations who could provide support to the farmers, who can also lobby on behalf of the farmers, as well as do a number of things. In fact, you have areas where farmers organizations actually do their own, set up their own marketing companies, and some of them even their own financing arrangements. So I think strong farmers organizations going forward is going to be critical for the sector, right? So we need to look at that. I want to ask a question which it might be sort of provocative in nature and maybe pointed at Senator St. Clair. How can the agriculture industry tap into the government's transformational fund? Because we have a transformational fund and we're looking at ways of transforming the agriculture sector. What can we do? How can we tap into that to ensure that the funding is available to transfer the agriculture sector? And somebody earlier on mentioned the public-private partnerships, and maybe that is one area where if we have strong farmers organizations together with the government, they can come up with those partnerships and invest in certain areas to move the sector forward. One of the areas I think we could look at is greenhouse production. And especially if you have fully automated greenhouses and you have all the technology involved there, it can be very attractive for young persons, right? And that is one way we could probably attract the youths back to the sector. As Dr. Barry, she spoke about succession planning. And yes, succession planning, but it has to be succession planning in all areas, including primary production. And we need to get the youths involved. And once again, I say I'm very happy to be here, and on behalf of the Grenada Development Bank, we're very thankful that we were invited to be part of this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. And of course, since you directed something to Senator St. Clair, Senator St. Clair, you can respond to Mr. Williams and, of course, make your closing remarks.
Yeah, all right, so I'll take this and I have some other comments to make. Thank you. Very good point. And someone will be listening outside and say, what happened to Donna? Nobody seems to even know how much money is in the transformational fund, but just to even tap into it. Somebody might jokingly say that. But I think it's an important point. And of course, I think through some motion, some resolution at the parliament, we might be able to move a motion such that government earmark X amount of monies for that. But still, I believe that even if we are going to do that, this money must be transformational. So for example, not just taking that little breadfruit chip and making 2 breadfruit chips, but making more than breadfruit chip, all different type of chip in a proper factory and stuff like that. So yes, I would endorse that, but it must be a significant agriculture project that creating some kind of transformation that I would fully endorse. That could even go right even to the export mechanism. I want to say that we need to start looking at things differently. I like to work and I have a colleague who always tell me that too, and I learned this too, that they always work from the results, always work from the back end. And our caller earlier on, who is a public servant, speak to that. We need to, and the result is the market, the consumer. We need to work from there, and then you would know all the type of support systems. So you use what you call a result chain system mechanism, and that will always be billing backwards. Because I will tell you, one of the callers earlier mentioned an issue about specialization. But specialization, again, is driven from the market end. Everything has to go from the market. So what the tourism market need, what the import substitution. So for example, right now we're looking at the issue with poultry. We can now look at the issue with maybe salad fruits. You can then maybe look at the issue of onions. And this has to be a dialogue that is taking place between the importers, the farmers, and so on. And the government has a facilitating role, and I have been playing a facilitating role in that chairmanship with the poultry. And you have different persons coordinating and bringing the main stakeholders together and see, okay, importer, I want to bring in less onions because we can grow onion. What is the price you can give us this onion at? What is the price the consumers can? What are the interventions to keep it? What are the model farms to show persons how to do it? And then we could say a young person, this is a tech pack to produce 2 acres of onions. Donald says, okay, I could give you $500,000 to produce it because you have a market for it. But somebody needs to sit down somewhere in this country and put these things together. And this is where the problem arises. We have to have the Minister of Agriculture, we call it on you, we'd have to set up some mechanism to put that coordination in place. Because if we don't do these things, everybody will continue laughing as if nothing is going on in agriculture. And I will say finally, that the Ministry of Agriculture must be left to do the Ministry of Agriculture business and give them the chance to do what they're supposed to be doing. When you give them a budget, they must be able to manage it because they can manage things. But every time we take away things from the Ministry of Agriculture, we weaken its structure, we weaken its delivery, and they become almost extinct. Eventually, we may end up with no Ministry of Agriculture. So that is what I want to close with. I want to say thank you to Godfrey for having this innovative program. I want to thank the rest of my colleagues here for contributing, and of course the callers and viewers on the outside. And I continue to strive on behalf of our farmers, fisher folks, and all the others within the agriculture sector. I look forward for your continued support in this regards. Good night.
Thank you very much, Senator St. Clair. Mr. Lewis, your closing comments, and if you want to respond to anything said.
There was a point that we didn't deliberate, and I just want to spend maybe 1 minute, and that was the blue economy. Well, the blue economy essentially is talking about, all, activities, economic activities related to our ocean, the sea. And, if you consider that Grenada is just 340 square kilometers, whereas our EEZ, the exclusive economic zone, is 26,000 square kilometers, 80 times the size. And so it offers enormous opportunity: leisure, services, business, fishery, shipping, research, exploration like oil and everything else. So there's enormous opportunity. Some countries have a lot of resort, casino, underwater hotel, underwater observatory, coral, wall, ocean park. There's enormous opportunity. So it's one of the things that I know Grenada has had. I remember I was part of a delegation that went when they launched that blue economy in The Hague in the Netherlands in 2014. And so I think there's enormous opportunity as we move forward. I would like to just take the opportunity to extend my deep appreciation to Mr. Godfrey for, hosting that program, putting it together. He has such an enormous commitment to the agricultural sector, and we are better for that. And I think participating here, it was a wonderful opportunity. All the participants were very knowledgeable and exuberant. And I hope that wouldn't be the last forum organized by Mr. Augustine. So once again, thank you very much, and have a good night to all the listening public. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. And now we come to Dr. Tessa Barry. Your any comments you want to make, and then your closing remarks.
Okay, I just want to reiterate the fact that, agriculture has the ability to, the amount of things agriculture has the ability to do. Grenada has a 37% poverty rate. Agriculture has the ability to reduce poverty, especially in the rural areas. Agriculture has the ability to create a healthier society in terms of opportunities for eating local, for generating revenue, etc., etc., etc. So, but Godfrey, we need to tap into the expertise we have. We need to invest in the sector. I mean, we can talk without investment. The sector goes nowhere. And we need a policy environment that is not hostile towards the sector. So we need a policy environment. And I take this statement from a gentleman I spoke to today when he said to me, no matter how we talk and how we discuss, yes, we raise awareness, but if we don't have a policy, if we have a policy environment that is hostile to the sector, we will not go anywhere. And the senator alluded to that. And I want to close by saying thanks for the opportunity. I have a passion for the sector. I have a love for the sector, and I am open to any opportunities there are in terms of offering what services I can, and I welcome this opportunity to discuss in this environment. And I want to leave my good and dear teacher, past teacher, Mr. Sinclair, with this point that I want him to go home with and think about, is what is the nutmeg, within the nutmeg sector, what are we doing for youth in that sector, because we have an aged nutmeg farming community. So, Mr. Sinclair, I just want you to go with that thought. We don't have time to expound on it now, but leave with that thought, please.
Even give me half a second. Right now, we have with the Sky project, based on support from the UK government, we have a program training young persons in nutmeg production at the CBQ level 2. We have had some challenges in terms of the number of participants. We have been targeting about 30 persons. We are now about 10 persons, and we're trying to increase it. And part of it has to do with contention as it relates to other competing programs paying monies to persons. Right now, we have had to increase the stipend, I think, to $500. So persons who might be interested in that, young persons, they can call in at the office of the GCNA, and we can facilitate that process. And there is training going on at the Maribor Farm School at the CBQ level 2 for nutmeg production. So that is going on right now for young people, Dr. Barry.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thank you, Dr. Barry. I am so thankful to the panelists for their contribution in making this two-part forum, a success. I cannot read all the comments on our Facebook platform, but, someone is saying, lovely program, keep agriculture on the front line. And I think that is very, very important. If we can keep agriculture on the front line, in whatever way we can, whatever we can do, definitely, I think we will be able to take agriculture forward. So special thanks to our panelists. I thank you very, very much for your contribution, your support throughout the past couple of days. I also want to say very special thanks to the Grenada Development Bank for providing support to this program. Also, the agricultural shop on the Carnage, I thank them very much for supporting the program, and also M&N Hardware for supporting. Clearly, from some of the comments and from the panelists and from our listeners and viewers, this is something we may have to continue. That discussion, to continue to raise awareness and to make the call and to give Senator Sinclair, that pep to continue to light fire in the Parliament, so we can get the wheels turning. So again, I thank you so very much, and I am very thankful to the support from my team here at the GBN, our Managing Director, Production, Mrs. McDonald, all of my team here at the GBN who've supported me in making this GBN initiative such an important one. We thank you very much. And I just want to remind you folks, this Friday, We Culture celebrates 1 year. And so we'll be having a very special program, so you can join us for that. All right? So until next time, thank you very much, and do have a good night. Thank you all.